16 crops to grow in November to survive difficult times. Hey there, my fellow green souls. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, the place where we believe that even the smallest pot, the tiniest balcony, or the quietest corner of your backyard can become a sanctuary of life. I know many of you watching today are indoor plant lovers, home gardeners, or weekend growers, people who find peace in soil, who breathe a little deeper when surrounded by leaves, and who see gardening not just as a hobby, but as a way of healing and surviving through uncertain times. But here's something I want you to imagine. What if November didn't mean the end of your gardening season, but the beginning of your resilience story? When others see bare soil and cold nights, true gardeners see opportunity, a hidden season of preparation and quiet abundance. November is when the patient grower steps forward, the one who knows that growth doesn't stop just because the air turns cold. In this video, I'll share with you 16 incredible crops you can grow in November. Plants that thrive when times get tough, crops that feed you, heal your soil, and keep your garden alive long after most people have packed away their tools. Whether you're nurturing herbs on a windowsill, growing vegetables in containers, or cultivating a small patch of earth behind your home, these plants are your allies. So, grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's grow something extraordinary together. And before we dive in, if you love learning how to make your home greener, your garden smarter, and your life more resilient, hit that subscribe button and join our Earthly Delights family. We grow, we learn, and we thrive, one plant at a time. One garlic, the winter guardian of every garden. When the cold winds roll in and most gardens fall silent, there's one quiet hero still at work beneath the surface. Garlic. You plant it in November, and then you wait. It sleeps through the frost, hidden under a thin blanket of soil, quietly building strength. And when spring arrives, it bursts through with a green promise that feels almost magical. Garlic isn't just a crop, it's a lesson in patience. It asks for so little, a bit of space, a touch of mulch, and your trust. While everything else struggles to survive the cold, garlic thrives in it, taking its time to grow deep roots before the world wakes again. For those of you tending small home gardens or even pots on a sunny balcony, garlic fits right in. Each clove becomes its own plant, meaning just a handful can turn into months of harvest. And when you finally dig them up next summer, you'll realize something beautiful. The food that sustained you through difficult times began in the quiet of November. If you've ever doubted that growth can happen in the coldest months, garlic will prove you wrong. It's not only food for the body, but also a reminder that even in stillness, life is working for you. And that's the real secret every gardener eventually learns, that patience grows the sweetest rewards. 2 onions and shallots, the quiet builders beneath the frost. If garlic is the guardian of winter, then onions and shallots are its loyal companions. Quiet, steady, and determined to grow even when the world above seems asleep. Plant them in November, and you're setting a foundation for abundance months ahead. Beneath the soil, they weave delicate white roots, anchoring themselves against the chill, preparing for the burst of life that spring will bring. There's something comforting about these crops. They don't rush. They don't demand constant attention. They remind us that good things take time. For indoor gardeners or anyone with limited space, shallots and onions can thrive beautifully in deep containers or raised beds. All they need is cool weather, a little drainage, and a gardener willing to believe that growth happens unseen before it's revealed. When the first green shoots break through the frosty soil, you'll feel it. That quiet joy only gardeners know. It's the moment patience turns into life. And months later, when you pull those golden bulbs from the earth, you'll realize they've been storing the sunlight of last season, waiting to nourish you when times feel uncertain. So as the cold deepens and your garden slows down, don't see it as an ending. Think of your onions and shallots working quietly beneath your feet, proving that even the smallest beginnings in November can lead to powerful harvests next year. 3. Kale and collards, the leafy warriors that defy the cold. When most gardens fade into silence and frost settles on the soil, kale and collards rise proudly against the chill, their deep green leaves glistening like armor. These are the warriors of winter, strong, unshaken, and sweeter with every frost that touches them. It's almost poetic how nature rewards their resilience. The colder it gets, the richer their flavor becomes, turning bitterness into sweetness, struggle into nourishment. For those of you tending small garden beds, raised planters, or even large pots on the balcony, kale and collards are your best friends this season. They ask for little, a bit of sunlight, occasional watering, and your willingness to let them stand tall when other plants surrender. And once they're established, they just keep giving. You can harvest a few leaves at a time, and they'll keep growing back, feeding you through the heart of winter. There's something deeply symbolic about these greens. They remind us that true strength isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. So when you step outside on a cold morning and see those vibrant leaves pushing through the frost, take a moment. That's life refusing to quit. That's the spirit of survival growing right in your own backyard. 4. Spinach and Swiss chard. The winter greens that never give up. When the world turns gray and the days grow short, spinach and Swiss chard become tiny miracles of color and life. These are the greens that refuse to surrender, even when temperatures dip low and light becomes scarce. They reach for every bit of sunshine, quietly transforming cold air and damp soil into crisp, nourishing leaves. For anyone who loves growing their own food, these plants are living proof that hope can grow even in the darkest months. Spinach thrives in cool weather, stretching out its deep green leaves as if collecting every ounce of winter's quiet energy. And Swiss chard, with its vibrant red, yellow, and orange stems, brings a burst of color to the dullest garden beds or balcony pots. Together, they make your winter garden feel alive again. If you've ever doubted whether it's worth planting in November, let these greens change your mind. They're easy to grow, they don't need much space, and they reward you quickly. A few seeds in a pot by your window, and within weeks you're harvesting fresh, homegrown leaves for soups, omelets, or salads. Spinach and Swiss chard aren't just vegetables. They're a reminder that growth doesn't stop with the seasons. It simply adapts. And when you care for these humble greens through the cold, they repay you with more than food. They give you the quiet satisfaction of nurturing life when the world outside seems asleep. 5. Winter lettuce and Asian greens. The quick harvest that lifts your spirits. Just when most people think gardening is over for the year, winter lettuce and Asian greens step in to remind us that fresh life is still possible. Imagine this. While icy winds blow outside, you step into your backyard or balcony and see a patch of tender green leaves swaying gently in the cold air. That sight alone can lift your mood on even the grayest November morning. These greens, varieties like Mizuna, tatsoi, and cold hardy lettuces, don't just survive the chill, they actually thrive in it. They grow fast, often ready to harvest in just a few weeks. And they don't mind short days or frosty nights. For busy gardeners or those with small indoor spaces, they're the perfect answer to the winter slowdown. You can grow them in containers, raised beds, or even trays near a sunny window. The best part? Their flavor is delicate yet vibrant, a burst of freshness in a season when most meals come from storage. Each bite feels like a small victory over the cold. These crops prove that you don't need endless sunlight or perfect weather to create abundance. Just the courage to plant something when others stop trying. So as the air turns crisp and quiet, plant a few rows of winter lettuce or Asian greens. Watch them grow day by day through the heart of November. They'll not only feed your body, but remind your spirit that there's always something beautiful growing, even in the cold. 6. Root crops, carrots, radishes, and parsnips. The hidden sweetness beneath the soil. Beneath the quiet blanket of November soil, something magical happens. Roots begin their slow and secret work. Carrots, radishes, and parsnips don't chase the sun or stretch toward the sky. Instead, they grow downward, digging deep, turning cold earth into sweetness. When frost touches them, it doesn't destroy, it transforms. The chill converts their starches into sugar, giving them a flavor so rich it almost feels like nature's reward for patience. For gardeners with limited space, these crops are treasures. They don't ask for much, just loose soil, steady moisture, and a little time. You can grow them in garden beds, deep containers, or even fabric pots along a sunny wall. Once sown, they take care of themselves quietly, hidden from sight but alive with potential. There's something deeply grounding about growing root vegetables in late autumn. They remind us that strength often develops where we can't see it. Each pull from the soil brings a sense of surprise, the thrill of discovery, the joy of seeing what's been forming in silence. When you bite into a freshly harvested carrot or roast a handful of sweet parsnips, you taste more than just food. You taste the story of endurance. These humble roots are proof that even in the coldest months, life keeps working beneath the surface, storing energy and preparing for brighter days ahead. 7. Walking onions, the self-renewing crop that never leaves you hungry. Among all the crops that thrive in tough times, walking onions might just be the most fascinating. They don't just grow, they move. As the stalks rise and form tiny bulb clusters on top, the weight bends them down toward the ground, planting themselves again. Over time, they walk across your garden, spreading life with every step. It's nature's way of saying, you'll never run out as long as you let me keep going. For anyone with a busy lifestyle or limited gardening space, walking onions are the ultimate low-maintenance gift. You plant them once, and they return year after year. No replanting, no fuss. The green tops taste like scallions, the underground bulbs like sharp, flavorful onions, and the little top sets can be pickled, roasted, or replanted for even more. They thrive through neglect. Forget to water them, and they'll forgive you. Poor soil? They'll manage just fine. Even when frost turns other plants brittle and brown, you'll see a patch of green shoots from your walking onions, quietly carrying on. In uncertain times, there's something comforting about a plant that doesn't depend on perfect care or constant attention. It just grows, endlessly, loyally, providing when you need it most. Walking onions remind us that the best kind of abundance is the one that takes care of itself, year after year, step by step. 8. Oyster mushrooms turning forgotten. Spaces into food and life. When garden beds freeze and daylight fades, most plants go quiet. But that's when oyster mushrooms begin their quiet magic. Unlike traditional crops, they don't need sunlight or rich soil. They thrive in the shadows, transforming what others might throw away, old logs, straw, cardboard, into food that's rich, flavorful, and full of protein. It's almost poetic, taking waste and turning it into nourishment. For indoor gardeners or anyone with limited outdoor space, oyster mushrooms are a secret weapon. A small shaded corner, a damp log, or even a simple bag of straw in your garage can become a mini farm. Within weeks, soft white clusters begin to form, unfolding like delicate petals. One log can feed you for months, and with a little care, it will keep producing season after season. There's something deeply hopeful about growing mushrooms in winter. While everything else waits for spring, mushrooms remind us that life doesn't always need sunshine to flourish. They grow quietly, efficiently, and beautifully in the dark. A living metaphor for resilience. So if you've ever thought your space was too small, too dark, or too late in the season to grow anything, oyster mushrooms are your gentle reminder. There is always room for growth. 9. Amaranth, the ancient grain that feeds body and spirit. Long before modern gardens and grocery stores, amaranth was a sacred crop, a plant that sustained civilizations through hardship. And today, it still carries that quiet power. Amaranth isn't just beautiful with its tall red plumes. It's a dual-purpose miracle. You can eat its tender leaves like spinach or harvest its tiny seeds, packed with protein, iron, and life itself. It's the kind of crop that gives more than it takes. In November, when most plants rest, you can start amaranth indoors. It germinates easily under gentle light, preparing itself for the season ahead. By spring, those seedlings will be ready to move outside, where they'll grow tall and proud, even in dry soil or intense heat. Amaranth doesn't demand perfection. It thrives on resilience. For small space gardeners, it's a blessing. Its vertical growth saves room, and its leaves keep producing as you harvest. And when those seed heads mature, you'll be holding a treasure trove of nutrition that stores for years. There's something symbolic about growing amaranth. It teaches you balance, patience, and gratitude. In times when the world feels uncertain, this ancient plant reminds us that true strength is rooted in simplicity. You plant it once, nurture it with intention, and it gives back endlessly, a bridge between the past wisdom and your garden's future. 10. Ground cherries, the golden fruit hidden in paper lanterns. If your garden ever needed a little mystery, ground cherries are it. At first glance, they don't look like much. Small plants, delicate stems, and those curious, papery husks hanging like tiny lanterns. But inside each one lies a golden fruit, sweet and tangy. like a blend of pineapple, vanilla, and tomato. It's the kind of flavor that instantly brightens a cold day and reminds you why growing your own food is worth every effort. Ground cherries are perfect for those who crave a touch of surprise in their garden. You plant them once, and they'll often return year after year, reseeding themselves quietly when you're not looking. They thrive in average soil, need little watering, and don't mind neglect. A rare combination for something that tastes so delightful. For small gardens or balcony growers, they're pure joy. The fruits fall to the ground when ripe, already wrapped in their natural storage cases. You can keep them on your counter for weeks, still fresh and flavorful. Kids love them, and honestly, adults do too, because there's a childlike wonder in peeling back those husks to find gold inside. So when November feels gray and your garden slows down, remember this little treasure. Ground cherries may be humble, but they remind us of a simple truth. Beauty and sweetness often grow quietly, just waiting for us to notice. 11. Sea kale, the coastal survivor. That feeds for decades, there's something timeless about sea kale, a plant that has learned to thrive where most life struggles. Along rocky shores and salt-sprayed cliffs, it endures the harshest winds and porous soils, growing strong and graceful against all odds. And when you bring that same plant into your garden, it brings with it the same quiet strength, a living symbol of resilience. Sea kale is a perennial, which means once you plant it, it stays with you for years, even decades. In early spring, its shoots push through the soil like pale asparagus, tender and delicious. As the season unfolds, its leaves grow broad and hardy, offering endless harvests. You can steam them, sauté them, or eat them fresh, each bite carrying the taste of the sea, slightly salty and wild. For gardeners who want long-term abundance with little effort, sea kale is a dream. It doesn't demand rich soil, it laughs at cold weather, and it keeps coming back stronger each year. And for those of you living near the coast or in challenging climates, it's a reminder that nature always finds a way to adapt and flourish. Plant it once, nurture it with care, and it will repay you for years to come. Sea kale doesn't just feed your body, it feeds your faith and endurance, showing that even in the toughest environments, beauty and nourishment can thrive side by side. 12. Malabar spinach, the climbing green that loves the heat. While most leafy greens surrender to summer heat, Malabar spinach climbs higher, thriving where others fade. But here's the secret. November is the perfect time to start its story. You can sow the seeds indoors now, letting them sprout slowly while the world outside cools. By the time spring warmth returns, those tiny seedlings will be ready to stretch and climb, turning your garden walls, fences, or balcony rails into a living curtain of green. Malabar spinach isn't a true spinach, but it fills the same place on your plate, only with more vigor and a hint of tropical flair. Its thick, glossy leaves stay tender even under hot sun, and the plant just keeps growing, offering handful after handful of fresh greens for months. And when the berries form, their deep purple hue isn't just beautiful, it can even be used as a natural dye or seed source for next year. For home gardeners who want to plan ahead, Malabar spinach is like planting confidence in your future harvest. It doesn't need rich soil, it loves climbing vertically, and it rewards your patience with abundance. There's something poetic about nurturing it through winter, knowing it will one day rise and bloom in the heat. Malabar spinach teaches us that every quiet effort now becomes tomorrow's growth. All it takes is a little faith and time. 13. Oca, the colorful treasure hidden beneath the earth. If you've ever wished your garden could surprise you, oca is the crop that delivers pure delight. Originating from the Andes, this vibrant tuber looks like a handful of jewels pulled straight from the soil. Pink, orange, yellow, even crimson. Each root seems painted by nature herself. And beyond its beauty, oca carries resilience. It thrives where other root crops falter, laughing at poor soil and cool weather. Planting oca is like planting hope for the months ahead. You can start it in containers or garden beds, letting the foliage sprawl and soak up the mild autumn sun. By late fall, the real magic happens underground. The tubers form quietly, storing energy and color, while the surface growth fades away. When you dig them up, it's like unearthing treasure. Sweet, tangy, and packed with vitality. Oca is also a survivor's crop. It resists disease, avoids most pests, and stores beautifully for months in a cool, dry place. You can roast it, boil it, or eat it fresh after a few days of sun curing, which brings out a caramel sweetness unlike anything else. For gardeners who love discovery, Oka is a conversation between patience and reward. It asks for trust, to plant and wait, but what it gives back is abundance, color, and the simple joy of finding life's brightness hidden just beneath the surface. 14. Purslane, the resilient weed that turns survival into strength. Purslane is one of those plants most people overlook, or worse, pull out and toss away. Yet hidden in this humble weed is one of nature's greatest gifts. Its thick, succulent leaves are bursting with omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. Nutrients we often chase in expensive supplements, but can grow freely right at our feet. It's the quiet survivor of the garden world, thriving where almost nothing else will. When the soil is dry and cracked, when the sun beats down and other crops wilt, Purslane spreads confidently, hugging the ground in a lush green carpet. It asks for no fertilizer, no constant care, just a bit of space and your willingness to see its worth. The leaves have a crisp, lemony taste, refreshing and light, perfect for salads or stir-fries. And once you let it seed itself, you'll have it forever, returning each season like an old friend. For the indoor grower or backyard gardener, Purslane is a reminder of resilience. It shows that even in neglect, life finds a way to thrive. In uncertain times, this wild green teaches a powerful lesson. Survival doesn't always require perfection, just persistence. So the next time you spot it sprouting between your stepping stones or beside your garden bed, don't pull it out. Harvest it, celebrate it. 15. Perennial kale and good King Henry, the greens that never quit giving. There are plants that need constant care, and then there are the quiet champions, the ones that grow steadily year after year without ever asking for much. Perennial kale and good King Henry belong to that rare group. They're not showy, they don't demand attention, but once they take root, they become lifelong companions in your garden, faithfully offering nourishment season after season. Perennial kale, with its rich green leaves, keeps producing long after regular kale has withered. It doesn't bolt, it doesn't fade, it simply endures. You can snip a few leaves here and there, and it will keep regrowing, undeterred by frost or heat. Beside it, good King Henry rises quietly, an old European heirloom with tender shoots that taste like asparagus in spring, and leaves that cook like spinach all year round. Together, they form a living pantry, dependable, generous, and full of vitality. These plants are perfect for gardeners who love the idea of growing once and harvesting forever. They thrive even in partial shade, where other crops might struggle, and they remind us that sustainability doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as planting something that lasts. In a world where everything feels temporary, perennial greens teach us a beautiful truth. Real abundance isn't rushed or fleeting. It's steady, enduring, and always there when you need it most. 16. Cover crops and green manures. The secret garden beneath the surface. While most people end their gardening year by clearing their beds bare, experienced growers know that the real work of healing begins now. Cover crops and green manures are the invisible heroes of every resilient garden. Plants that don't feed you directly, but quietly rebuild the soil that will feed you later. Think of them as nature's caretakers, tending the earth while you rest. When you sow clover, rye, vetch, or field peas in November, you're not just planting seeds, you're planting next year's strength. Their roots anchor the soil against erosion, draw up nutrients from deep underground, and, most importantly, add nitrogen, the very essence of plant life. Even as frost settles in, they keep working, creating a living blanket that protects and enriches the ground beneath. For home gardeners, this is one of the simplest ways to build long-term fertility. You can grow cover crops between your vegetable cycles, in empty beds, or even in containers that need a seasonal rest. By spring, you'll find your soil darker, looser, and full of energy, ready to burst back into life. Cover crops remind us that growth isn't always about what we can see. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen quietly beneath the surface. Just like in our own lives, where rest, recovery, and preparation make way for the next season of abundance. Growing hope through every season, and there you have it, 16 crops that don't just survive November, but thrive in it. Each one tells a story of strength, patience, and quiet resilience. From the garlic resting under the frost to the mushrooms blooming in the dark, every plant teaches us something deeper, that life, even when slowed by cold and hardship, never truly stops growing. It simply finds new ways to begin again. For those of you watching, the balcony gardeners, the backyard dreamers, the indoor plant lovers who care for a bit of green like it's part of their soul, this list isn't just about food. It's about building confidence in your own hands, in your ability to create life in abundance right where you are. You don't need acres of land or perfect weather, just curiosity, courage, and a small seed of hope. So as November unfolds, don't put away your gardening gloves just yet. Try planting 1 or 2 of these crops. Watch them endure the cold, and let them remind you that resilience starts small, in soil, in roots, and in you. If one of these crops inspired you today, tell me in the comments. Which one are you excited to try first? And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our Earthly Delights family. Together, we'll keep growing, learning, and finding beauty in every season, because the garden never truly sleeps, and neither should your hope.